Joining me, and let me firstly say that this is going to take some time, so if you've clicked on this, it's going to take a little while to get through. So this is not about getting into any form of debate. I'm about to articulate the best possible way I can the effects, the cause and effect for each and every one of us citizens along the borders of New South Wales and Victoria. More so on the Victorian side, because I am a Victorian Member of Parliament. So I represent the Wodonga district. Clearly, since I was first elected in 2006, I have unapologetically stood up for our border community first. Never a day in my time in Parliament have I deviated from that. Now today is absolutely no exception. Frankly, this is the greatest act of political bastardry any government can place on its citizens. Now when I refer to that, this is the current Victorian Labor Government. At no stage has the Victorian Labor Government released its health data justifying these draconian measures, and yet what we have isn't a bubble, it's a barricade. The River Murray is not the Berlin Wall. It should not separate families, ruin livelihoods, be a point of division between border communities. The river has been our point of unity, not our point of division. This fact might come as a revelation to people in Melbourne, but it's not to us, the people whose lives are shaped by that river and the communities that thrive on it. We cannot let COVID-19 become the point of division between us. We can't let Melbourne-based politicians and bureaucrats make decisions to ruin livelihoods and cause huge mental health stress when they have no idea how we live 300 kilometres away. Today we have people who have lost their jobs. Businesses with 15 staff who are closing their doors because they can't get maintenance workers out of Melbourne. Truck drivers on the road illegally because they can't get tests every 3 days. A mum to be told by the COVID hotline to risk a $5,500 fine to see her gynaecologist. These rules are turning good people into lawbreakers. I have had people in tears, even to the point of threatening self-harm. From midnight you can't go to Albury to browse the shops, have a coffee or get a beer. Albury, you can't come to Wodonga either. These new orders bar workers from coming from Melbourne to fix a machine in Albury without having to quarantine. The Victorian Premier would prefer if they came from Sydney. Some of these with up to 15 staff say they will now close their doors. You can't go to the hairdresser in Wodonga that is staffed by people from Albury, but can't go to a hairdresser in Albury staffed by Wodonga people. There is some concern over intimate bubble partners, but more than 24 hours after the announcement, the Victorian Government are yet to publish the rules. This is absolute lunacy, people. You can't go to the church in Albury, and if football is your religion, you can't go to an Ovens and Murray game, even though New South Wales people can. You can go to a wedding in Albury, you just can't get back. This is the care and compassion of the Victorian Health Minister Martin Foley. These are his words. People crossing the border to enter Victoria for one of the essential reasons must also not travel further than reasonably necessary to undertake that activity. Now, in other words, if you're from Albury, you can't shop in Wangaratta or Melbourne if you can get the essential items that you need in Wodonga. These permitted reasons also apply to Victorian border bubble residents who plan to enter New South Wales. They will need to have observed the permitted essential reasons for travel while in New South Wales if they wish to return to Victoria without a permit under the border bubble system. The changes mean that the border bubble residents can cross the border without a permit to get to the essential services and items they need, but not to visit a friend, not to go for a meal at a pub, or to go on a holiday. The fact is the nearest cases to us are not in Sydney, they are in Melbourne. Richmond, in fact, to be precise. But do you think Daniel Andrews is stopping them going into the next suburb of Hawthorn? Our border should be a COVID-19 bubble for those who live around it, not a wall. This is not Berlin or Belfast. Wodonga needs Albury, Albury needs Wodonga. As for this ridiculous ring of steel talk by some in our community, I say get the facts right. There is a ring around Sydney. Police are involved in an operation. The Highway Patrol has software that picks up anyone from a hotspot. The city is locked down. Those suburban areas are locked down. All the Premier for Melbourne is trying to do is to rewrite history. Pretend 800 Victorians didn't die in Melbourne last year. He is trying to bully the New South Wales government, and like the immature child that throws the toys out of the bath when they don't get their way, we become the collateral damage in all of this. You know, we live in a region where significant long haul transport, our truckies that live and work here, those that do the long haul tasks that connecting Melbourne and Sydney and other parts of Australia. The 7-day testing for the freight industry is ignorant of the facts and completely unworkable. We need greater flexibility in our testing centres for this ridiculous demand that forces truckies to have an up-your-nose test every 3 days. We have 2 stations near Melbourne for the 3,000 trucks on the road between Sydney and Melbourne each night, which is clearly not enough. It's not rocket science. Some of these guys and girls are struggling to get tested, struggling to get their results back in time to keep the wheels turning. What we need is some flexibility and lateral thinking. I'm calling for a truck specialist testing station at workable locations. Allow rapid antigen testing to supplement the PCR testing regime. Look at more flexible testing hours for our localised health providers to meet the demand or prioritise the driver's test and their results. Now, I know that the health department officials are struggling with the challenge of adapting to meeting the testing times that would marry into the night shift hours that our drivers are conducting. I live in hope, and I am hoping common sense kicks in and that those who live, work, raise your family, play sport and interact across the river get recognition that we can continue to do that. I'm sick and tired of these politicians talking about their country roots, and all they do is screw us over with their path of least resistance to satisfy their city mates. If Melbourne politicians want a ring of steel, they can have one for their communities. Until then, don't impose one on mine.